We are back here for the Big 12 basketball tournament predictions here, as we've done for some of these other conferences on the channel. We've done the SEC, Big East, ACC, and the Big 10, and Mountain West will be out shortly. And I also did a bracketology update a couple days ago where I went over the bubble implications for all of these teams and then completed my full 68 team bracket, as well as a WCC tournament prediction within that video as well. So be sure to check out all of that content on the channel. Also be sure to like and subscribe, comment your guys' predictions for these games down below. But we get into it here. I'm going to be predicting all of these games within the Big 12. All 16 teams make it, and I will be giving you guys my thoughts on the seeding implications for March Madness for all of these teams, where they can move up to, where they can move down to, and where they are entering this tournament. So we started out here with Cincinnati and Oklahoma State, and Cincy was the lone bubble team kind of in this Big 12 conference going into the weekend, but then they lost to this Oklahoma State team by double digits. So I think that they are firmly out at this point. They would definitely have to go on a titanic run here, probably make the final or even have to win it to get that automatic qualifying bid. Just a tough situation right now because they did have a decent out of conference there. Still, though, I think that they get some revenge against this Oklahoma State team. I think that they are much better there. I think that Jizzle James and Dylan Mitchell go off, and they are able to knock off Oklahoma State in that matchup. Then we get to Colorado versus TCU. I am going to go with Colorado here as a bit of an upset. They notably beat TCU in the regular season by 20. Given the altitude is a bit of a factor in a lot of their games, they only had 3 regular season wins, but I just think that this Colorado team has a little bit of fight in them. And I just think that this TCU team has been so disappointing this year. I will give the Buffaloes that big upset in that matchup. Then we get to Arizona State versus Kansas State. Kansas State just been a complete enigma. They had a very topsy-turvy out of conference. Then for a month-long stretch in conference play, they were playing like one of the best teams in the nation, and then they just kind of fell off after that. These two teams split in the regular season. I do think that Kansas State is the slightly better team, so I think that with Coleman, Hawkins, and co., they get it done there against Arizona State, although no result would shock me in that matchup. And then we get to the final matchup here, UCF versus Utah here. Two decent teams, definitely not making an at-large bid in the tournament, but I will go with Utah here. They did lose in Orlando earlier this season, but I just think that they have more quality of talent and are playing better basketball here at the moment, so I will take them to advance. Then we get to the second round here, and we definitely got some better matchups. So first, we're going with Iowa State over Cincy. Cincy's been playing close with some of these good teams. They only lost by 11 at Iowa State earlier this season. So I do think that the Cyclones will be challenged a bit here, but I do think that they will win under a big effort from Moncilovic, Keshawn Gilbert, and others. Iowa State going into this tournament around a 2 or a 3 seed. So if they do very well, maybe advance to the semifinal or the final, I think that they could get a number 2 seed along with some help. But if they do bow out early, say lose this game to Cincy or lose to BYU, I think they're definitely on the 3 line there, so definitely a lot to play for. Then we get to this next matchup here, Colorado versus West Virginia. West Virginia, a team that's currently sitting at an 8 or a 9 seed here. I do think that the Mountaineers get that one done over Colorado pretty easily in that matchup to advance to the quarterfinal. Then we get to Kansas State versus Baylor. Baylor, a team that is closest to the bubble here in the Big 12. They're currently sitting at a 10 seed here. Certainly don't want to lose this game to Kansas State, and we know that the Wildcats do have a bit of upside there under Jerome Tang, so do not want to mess around in that matchup. And Baylor has not fared well these past couple years in this Big 12 tournament, so we will see, but I do think that the Baylor Bears are the better team in that matchup, so I do think they will get it done there very close. And then we get to this final matchup, Utah versus Kansas here, and Kansas notably did lose at elevation in Salt Lake City to this Utah team, but I think that the dynamic is much different here on a neutral court, if not Kansas having a big fan advantage in this one. So I do think that the Jayhawks get it done there. They did go under a tough stretch a few weeks ago when they did have that road trip at BYU and Utah, but I do think that they are playing better there. Big win against Arizona over the weekend for them. Then we advance to the quarterfinals, and this is where things really start to pick up between all of these teams, as these last 8 teams that I have in this bracket are all going to make March Madness as it stands right now, but just where will they be seated is the big conundrum here. So you've got BYU currently sitting at a 7 seed, and Iowa State, as I mentioned, at a 2 or a 3 seed, and BYU notably went into Iowa State this past week and won a thrilling OT battle there, although the Cyclones did come back from 20 down to equalize that one. So it was a big offensive showdown between those two. I think that the defenses will play much better here in the Big 12 tournament, and I am going with Iowa State here. I just think they're the overall better team. I know that BYU's been very streaky at the moment here, but I just think that Iowa State has much more talent. When they've been healthy here, as I've said, they haven't lost many games this season. One of the two was to this BYU team. The other was in Maui Gym when they lost at the buzzer against Auburn by 1 point, and see how good Auburn is at this point. So I do think that this Iowa Iowa State team has a very high ceiling, and I think that they reach it here against BYU, so give me them to advance there, although very thrilling matchup. Then we get to West Virginia versus Houston. I think this is probably the worst of the quarterfinal matchups. Houston swept this season series, only had the lone loss to Texas Tech in conference, so I do think that the Cougars advance there against WVU. We'll see if the Mountaineers can keep it close, though. Then we get to Baylor and Arizona. And Arizona, I was shocked that they were even the 2 seed because they have taken a few losses late in the conference season here, but they were playing very well in January. So that does pay off for them there. They did go into Baylor a couple weeks ago and won that one by 7 points. So I do think they are the better team here on a neutral site. I think that Arizona's talent gets it done there over Baylor, although the Bears have a lot of shooting threats on the outside, VJ Edgecombe and others, Jeremy Roach. So they could get themselves into a shootout here against Arizona, but I just think that Arizona has too many playmakers, so give me the Wildcats to advance. Then we get to Kansas versus Texas Tech. Texas Tech has been dealing with some injuries here over the past couple weeks. I think that they are much healthier now, and I think that JT Toppin makes the difference here against this Kansas team. They did go into Kansas last week and get a big win at Fog Allen here, so I think that on the neutral court, they will acquit themselves well here. Kansas currently sitting at about a 7 seed, although could go up or down. If they win this conference tournament, then they could probably get their way back up to a 4 or 5 seed. Texas Tech, on the other hand, currently sitting at around a 2 or 3 seed here, so a lot to play for them. I think that they do win this matchup here. So now we get to the semifinal round, Iowa State versus Houston. Houston obviously a lock for a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Iowa State playing for that 2 seed. I will go with Houston here. I was very disappointed when these two teams played a few weeks back, and Iowa State was very injured in that matchup, ended up losing by double digits. Now they will have the full rotation of guys, Keyshawn Gilbert, Momcilovic, Jefferson, and so I do think that they will play a great game. They notably killed this Houston team in the Big 12 championship last year, won that game going away by 30-plus points. So I don't think that Kelvin Sampson is going to forget that one. Otzelberger will have his guys ready to go on the other end. I think this is going to be very close. If Iowa State is getting, say, 5 or 6 points on the spread here, I would definitely pounce on that, as I think it's going to come down to the last second. But I am just going to give the nod to the Houston Cougars to get this one done narrowly there. I think that LJ Cryer has been great in the clutch, but definitely looking forward to that matchup. And also looking forward to this matchup, Arizona versus Texas Tech. This would be an offensive display here between these two teams, but I am going to give the nod to Texas Tech. I think that their defense is just solidly better than this Arizona team, and when Caleb Love isn't performing at his best, this team just leaves a lot to be desired, and you saw against Kansas that their defense is pretty leaky there, so I do think that JT Toppin and the others will take advantage of that and advance to the final here, where they play Houston, and I really hope that this is the final that we get for this tournament, although a lot of the others would be very interesting as well. But Texas Tech being the one team that beat Houston in the Big 12 regular season, and then Houston did beat that Texas Tech team in Lubbock later on when Texas Tech was more injured. In this matchup here, I am going to give the nod to Texas Tech. I think that they win the Big 12 here and probably get a number 2 seed in March Madness. I just think that they can match up with Houston on the defensive end there, and then late in the game, they can hit some tough shots. So I do think that this Red Raiders team has very high upside. Wouldn't shock me either way there, but I do love the way that this Texas Tech team has been playing as of late when they've been fully healthy, so give me them to cut down the nets there. So with that being said, let me know your guys' thoughts on my predictions for the Big 12 in the comments down below. What do you disagree with in particular? Who do you have winning it all? As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.